The crystal wine glasses clinked as my sister Amanda raised her fourth toast of the evening. To success, she declared, her designer bracelet catching the light, and to finally proving that hard work and ambition pay off. I sat quietly at the far end of our parents' elaborate dining table, nursing my single glass of wine. The same table where 20 years ago we'd shared simple family dinners before Amanda discovered her calling in the corporate world. "Oh, Emma," she turned to me with that familiar condescending smile. "I almost forgot you were there. Still running that little craft shop downtown?" "Vintage furniture restoration," I corrected softly, though I knew she didn't care about the difference. "And yes, still running it." "Restoration." She laughed, the sound sharp and practiced. "You mean you fix old chairs and tables? Well, I'm out here becoming CEO of Maxwell Industries. Our mother being at Amanda. She'd always been proud of her eldest daughter's corporate climb, each promotion celebrated like a national holiday. "Amanda closed another major acquisition today," she announced to the table. "The biggest deal in the company's history. Tomorrow's the final signing," Amanda added, straightening her Channel blazer. "Once it's done, Maxwell Industries will be the largest furniture manufacturer in the Northeast." The irony wasn't lost on me. While I restored beautiful old pieces by hand, teaching myself the craft through years of patient study, Amanda mass-produced cheap furniture that fell apart within months. "Well," our father raised his glass, "at least one of our daughters understands business." I thought about the folder sitting in my office safe, the one containing documents that would make tomorrow very interesting. But I just smiled and took another sip of wine. "Seriously, Emma," Amanda continued, clearly enjoying her moment of glory, "when are you going to give up that pathetic little shop and get a real job? I could find you something entry-level at Maxwell, maybe in the mailroom." Our cousins snickered. Aunt Patricia shook her head sympathetically. "Emma dear, your sister's right. It's time to think about your future." If they only knew. 10 years ago, when Amanda was still climbing a corporate ladder, I discovered my passion for furniture restoration almost by accident. I found an old Victorian desk at a garage sale, its beauty hidden under years of neglect. Something about it called to me. I spent weeks researching restoration techniques, learning about wood types, original craftsmanship, and proper preservation methods. When I finally restored that desk to its original glory, I knew I'd found my calling. But it wasn't just about restoration. I saw something bigger, a way to preserve history while building a sustainable future. I opened my shop, Timeless Treasures, with my savings and a small loan from our grandmother, the only family member who believed in my vision. "Your sister chases money," Grandma told me before she passed away. "But you, my dear, you chase excellence. Remember that." What my family didn't know, what they never bothered to learn, was that Timeless Treasures was just the public face of my business. Behind the scenes, I'd built a network of artisans, collectors, and investors who shared my vision. We didn't just restore furniture, we preserved historical pieces, advised museums, and quietly acquired struggling furniture companies with potential. One of those companies was Maxwell Industries. 5 years ago, when Amanda was still in middle management, Maxwell was on the verge of bankruptcy. Their CEO had run the company into the ground with poor decisions and cheaper materials. I saw an opportunity. Through a series of shell companies and quiet negotiations, I purchased controlling interest in Maxwell Industries. But instead of announcing my ownership, I stayed in the shadows, watching as the board appointed new management, including my ambitious sister. Amanda had no idea that every major decision, every promotion, every acquisition she'd orchestrated had required my quiet approval. Her meteoric rise to CEO wasn't quite the solo triumph she believed it to be. And tomorrow's big signing, the deal she'd been bragging about all evening, it would require the signature of Maxwell's majority owner, me. "You know what your problem is, Emma?" Amanda's voice cut through my thoughts. She was on her fifth glass of wine now, her words slightly slurred. "You lack vision. You're content to stay small, fixing broken things in your little shop while I'm out here building an empire." Our mother nodded in agreement. Amanda has always been the ambitious one. I thought about the antique ledger in my office, the one documenting my ownership of not just Maxwell Industries, but 6 other major furniture manufacturers across the country. My little shop was just the tip of a very large iceberg. "Maybe you're right," I said, standing up. "It's getting late, and I have an important meeting tomorrow morning." Amanda laughed again. "Oh, finally selling that dusty old shop?" I gathered my coat, fighting back a smile. No, actually. I'm attending a signing ceremony for a major corporate acquisition. Should be quite interesting. Don't tell me you're serving coffee at my signing tomorrow. Amanda nearly spilled her wine. That would be too perfect. Our father frowned. Emma, don't embarrass your sister at her big moment. Wouldn't dream of it, I said quietly, heading for the door. See you all tomorrow. As I drove home, I thought about the morning ahead. The lawyers would be there at 9. The papers would be ready. Everything would be in place for the biggest deal in Maxwell's history, except for one small detail. In my office safe, next to Grandma's old photographs and that first Victorian desk's original key, sat the documents proving my ownership of Maxwell Industries. Tomorrow, Amanda would finally learn what real success looks like. I pulled into my driveway, smiling at the thought of her face when she realizes that her pathetic little sister owns not just her company, but half the industry she thinks she conquers. Sometimes the smallest shops hide the biggest secrets. The Maxwell Industries boardroom hummed with anticipation the next morning. I arrived early, settling into a quiet corner to watch the show unfold. Executives in expensive suits filed in, followed by lawyers clutching leather briefcases. Amanda strutted in last, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Is everyone ready? She announced, taking her place at the head of the table. Today, Maxwell Industries makes history. I caught my assistant's eye across the room and gave a slight nod. She'd been one of the few people who knew the truth all along. Before we begin, a senior lawyer cleared his throat. We need to confirm that all necessary parties are present. Amanda waved her hand dismissively. Everyone's here. Let's get started. Actually, the lawyer adjusted his glasses. We're still waiting for the majority shareholders representative. Amanda's perfectly maintained smile flickered. What are you talking about? I'm the CEO. I speak for the company. The CEO doesn't have authority to approve an acquisition of this size without the majority owner's consent. He explained patiently. According to our records, Maxwell Industries is primarily owned by Vintage Ventures LLC. I stood up slowly, smoothing my simple black dress. That would be me. The room fell silent. Amanda's face went from confusion to disbelief to growing horror as I walked to the head of the table. Emma, she choked out. What are you doing? This is a closed meeting. I pulled a folder from my briefcase and slid it across the table. These documents confirm that Vintage Ventures LLC, which I founded 10 years ago, owns 57% of Maxwell Industries shares. The lawyer examined the papers, nodding slowly. Everything appears to be in order. Ms. Emma Bennett is indeed the majority owner of Maxwell Industries. Amanda shot up from her chair. This is ridiculous. She runs a furniture repair shop. She can't possibly. Restoration. I corrected her, just as quietly as I had the night before. And that shop is just one small part of my business empire, one you never bothered to understand. The room started to spin for Amanda. She gripped the table for support. How? When? 5 years ago, I said, taking her seat at the head of the table, when Maxwell was nearly bankrupt. I saw potential in the company, potential that was being wasted by poor management and cheap materials. I opened another folder. I purchased controlling interest through a series of private transactions. The board needed new leadership. You were ambitious, competent enough, and most importantly, too focused on your own success to question where the opportunities came from. Every promotion, Amanda whispered, realization dawning. Every acquisition. Required my approval, yes, I smiled. Though I let you believe they were all your idea. Our parents chose that moment to burst into the room. They'd apparently been waiting in the lobby, expecting to witness Amanda's triumph. What's going on? Our father demanded. Why is Emma disrupting this meeting? The lawyer cleared his throat again. Mr. Bennett, your daughter Emma is the majority owner of Maxwell Industries. Has been for 5 years. Mother actually had to sit down. Father's face went through the same colors as Amanda's had at dinner the night before. While you were all laughing at my pathetic little shop, I continued, I was building something bigger than Maxwell Industries. I am controlling interest in 6 other furniture manufacturers. My restoration business has contracts with museums across the country. That dusty old shop you mocked. It's the public face of a corporation worth over $300 million. Amanda slumped into a chair. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked simply. You were also convinced I was wasting my life, so certain that success only looks one way. I tried to tell you about my business, but you never listened. You were too busy planning your next power move. I turned to the lawyers. Now, about this acquisition. I've reviewed the terms, and they need revision. The current proposal would lead to factory closures and hundreds of lost jobs. That's not how we do business. But the profit margins, Amanda started to argue, are not more important than people's livelihoods. I cut her off. Quality and sustainability matter more than quick profits. That's something you never understood, Amanda. You chase numbers. I build legacy. I pulled out a new contract. Here's the revised proposal. We acquire the company but maintain all existing factories. We invest in better materials, proper craftsmanship, and employee training. Yes, it cuts into immediate profits, but it builds something that lasts. The lawyers reviewed the new terms while Amanda stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The quiet little sister she thought she knew had never really existed. One more thing, I added. Amanda, you're being reassigned. Her head snapped up. You're firing me? No, I'm making you head of our new apprenticeship program. You'll work directly with our craftsmen, learning what actually goes into making quality furniture. Maybe then you'll understand the difference between building something and just running a business. You can't do this, our father interjected. Amanda is a CEO. No, I said firmly. Amanda is an employee of my company, a company I built while you were all too busy mocking my choices to notice my success. I stood up, gathering my papers. The meeting is adjourned. We'll reconvene once everyone has reviewed the new terms. Amanda, your reassignment begins next week. I suggest you spend the weekend thinking about what really matters in business and in life. As I walked out of the boardroom, I heard my mother's shocked whisper. All this time we thought. That's the problem. I called back without turning around. You all spent so much time thinking you knew better that you never bothered to see what was right in front of you. Back in my little shop that evening, I ran my hands over the smooth wood of that first Victorian desk, the one that had started it all. It still sat in my office, restored to its former glory, but bearing the marks of its journey. Like me, it had been underestimated, overlooked, but ultimately proved its worth. I picked up my phone and dialed a familiar number. Grandma's Antiques, a warm voice answered. Hi, Mrs. Chen. That Victorian settee you mentioned last week, I'm ready to take a look. Because while I might own a corporate empire now, I never forgot where I started. Sometimes the greatest success stories begin in the smallest shops, and sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should have been watching all along.
The invitation to my parents' 40th anniversary celebration arrived via courier. Thick vellum paper, calligraphy addressing. Mom's signature style for events she wanted photographed in the society pages. I opened it standing in my London office, 17 floors above the financial district. The view stretched across the Thames toward Parliament. Inside, a single card. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison Whitmore request the honor of your presence. No +1. No guest accommodation. I called Mom that evening, mourning for her in Connecticut. Darling, did you get the invitation? I did. It's beautiful. Your father insisted on the garden venue. We're expecting 200 guests. The governor confirmed, and Senator Blackwell, and the entire board of Harrison's company. It's going to be quite the affair. She paused. We weren't sure if you'd be able to make it with your situation overseas. My situation. That's what she called my job as Senior Vice President of International Acquisitions for Meridian Global Holdings. The job that had me negotiating billion-dollar deals across 4 continents. The job that came with a 7-figure salary, stock options, and yes, access to the company's fleet of private aircraft. I'll be there, I said. Wonderful. Though I should mention we had to be very selective about +1s. Space constraints, you understand. Just immediate family and their spouses. What about Uncle James's girlfriend? Aunt Carol's partner? Well, they're established relationships. Long-term. Not like your... What was his name? The one you mentioned at Christmas. Dimitri. My boyfriend of 3 years. The human rights attorney I'd met in Geneva. He's actually... I'm sure he's lovely, dear, but you understand how these things work. We need to maintain a certain caliber of guest. People the governor and senator will want to meet. Network with. Your father's reputation depends on these connections. Translation. My relationship wasn't impressive enough. Dmitri didn't have the right pedigree, despite his doctorate from Oxford and his work prosecuting war crimes at The Hague. Of course, Mom. I understand perfectly. After I hung up, I looked at my calendar. The anniversary was in 3 weeks. I had a meeting in Dubai that week, then Geneva, then... An idea formed. Crazy. Absolutely perfect. I called my assistant. Catherine, I need you to reach out to the Meridian Aviation Department. I want to know the availability of the G650 for personal use the weekend of the 24th. The large jet? That's... I know what it cost. Check anyway. Then I made another call. To a contact in my phone listed simply as HRH Private Secretary. 2 weeks before the anniversary, Dad called. Sophia, your mother mentioned you're coming. Flying commercial, I assume? I can have Gerald pick you up from JFK. Gerald. Their driver. The man who'd picked me up from the airport for 15 years like I was luggage to be collected. That won't be necessary. I'm arranging my own transportation. Oh. He sounded surprised I was capable. Well, if you're renting a car. Not a car. I'll text you details when I have them. Sophia, this event is very important. Your mother has planned every detail. Please don't show up in something inappropriate. Inappropriate. Like the used Honda I'd driven in college while my younger brother Marcus got a new BMW. Like the studio apartment I'd rented in New York while working my way up from analyst to associate to VP, while Marcus lived in their guest house rent-free during business school. Don't worry, Dad. I know exactly what's appropriate. The week of the anniversary, everything fell into place. The Dubai deal closed early, $2.3 billion acquisition that would be announced in the Financial Times. The Geneva meeting wrapped ahead of schedule. And my special guests confirmed their attendance. I texted my parents' address to the aviation coordinator with specific instructions. Land at Westchester County Airport at 2 p.m. Saturday. Ground transportation to be arranged for all passengers. My parents' anniversary garden party started at 3 p.m. Friday evening, I flew from Geneva to London, then London to New York on the Meridian G650. 12-passenger luxury jet with full bedroom suite, conference room, and cabin crew trained in 5-star hospitality. The cabin was configured for my weekend passengers. Myself, Dmitri, and 3 very special guests. We landed at Westchester at 1:50 p.m. Saturday. I changed in the bedroom suite, navy silk dress, Chanel tasteful jewelry. When I emerged, Dmitri was helping our guests with their belongings. Ready? He asked, straightening his tie. More than ready. The motorcade was waiting. 3 black SUVs with diplomatic flags. We arrived at my parents' estate at 2:45 p.m. The garden was already full. Women in pastel dresses and men in blazers, champagne glasses catching afternoon sunlight. White tents, string quartet, ice sculptures. Mom had outdone herself. I spotted my family immediately. Mom in lavender silk, Dad in a gray suit, Marcus and his wife Felicity holding court with a cluster of older couples. The governor stood near the bar. Senator Blackwell was laughing at something Dad said. We walked in through the garden gate. Me first, then Dmitri, then our 3 guests. The quartet stopped playing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Because walking behind me in elegant afternoon attire with discreet security detail flanking them, were 3 members of European royalty. Not British. My contacts weren't quite that good, but genuine titled aristocracy from a small but wealthy European nation. A duke, his wife the Duchess, and their daughter who happened to sit on the board of 2 international humanitarian organizations. They also happened to be close personal friends with Dimitri's family and had become friends with me over the past 2 years of working on cross-border legal initiatives. Mom's champagne glass slipped from her hand. It shattered on the flagstone. Dad's face went through several colors before settling on pale gray. Marcus's mouth actually fell open. Mom, Dad, I said brightly. So sorry we're a few minutes late. The landing slot at Westchester was delayed. You remember Dmitri, I've mentioned him. And may I introduce His Grace the Duke of Liechtenstein, Her Grace the Duchess, and their daughter Lady Charlotte. The Duke stepped forward smoothly, extending his hand to my father. Mr. Whitmore, thank you for accommodating us on such short notice. Your daughter was kind enough to offer transportation when she learned we'd be in New York this weekend. When she mentioned your anniversary, We couldn't possibly refuse the invitation. There had been no invitation. But my father didn't need to know that. Of course, Your Grace, Dad was stammering. I'd never heard him stammer in my life. Mom had recovered slightly. We're honored. So honored. Please let me introduce you to, she looked around desperately. Governor Richards. Senator Blackwell. May I present? The Duke and Duchess moved through the party with practiced grace, making conversation, charming everyone they met. Lady Charlotte stayed near me and Dimitri, discussing her foundation work with a cluster of fascinated guests. Your daughter has been instrumental in our refugee legal aid initiative, she was saying to a circle of rapt socialites. Her work on the cross-border legal framework has helped us process over 15,000 asylum cases. She's quite brilliant. Mom appeared at my elbow, face tight. Sophia, darling, might I have a word? We moved away from the crowd, near the rose garden where I'd played as a child. You didn't tell us you were bringing guests, Mom hissed. Especially such significant guests. You said space was limited. I assumed you'd want to accommodate actual titled aristocracy. Or should I have asked them to wait in the car? Her eye twitched. That's not what I meant and you know it. How do you even, when did I become friends with European nobility? Around the same time I became Senior Vice President of International Acquisitions. Around the same time I started negotiating deals with sovereign wealth funds and royal investment offices. Around the same time you stopped asking what I actually do for a living. We ask about your job. You ask if I'm still doing the London thing. You ask when I'm going to settle down and move back to Connecticut. You've never once asked about a deal I've closed, a negotiation I've led, or an achievement I'm proud of. She opened her mouth, then closed it. How did you get here? She finally asked. You said you were arranging transportation. Meridian's G650. 12-passenger jet. We flew from London with a Geneva stop to collect Dimitri and our guests. You have access to a private jet? For company business, yes. I asked to use it for personal travel this weekend. They approved it. That must cost about $30,000. I paid personally. I watched her process that. That's roughly what you spent on Marcus's wedding rehearsal dinner. The one where you sat me at the kids' table with his wife's teenage cousins. Her face flushed. You're still upset about that? I'm not upset, Mom. I'm just done. Done pretending I'm less than I am because it makes you comfortable. Done being excluded from your important events because I don't fit your vision of success. That's not fair. Isn't it? I said. You didn't invite Dimitri because he's not the right kind of impressive. But you'd love a photo with the Duke, wouldn't you? Mom flinched. Dad walked up, a little drunk, smiling too much. Sophia. The Duke was just telling us about business in Europe. He said you've been consulting for their investment office. Advisory role, I said. Helping them manage their portfolio. Dad blinked. That's impressive. You never said you worked at that level. You never asked, Dad, I said. You just ask if I'm still at that finance company, then switch to Marcus's promotion. His smile faded. Marcus has done well. He runs regional sales. That's fine. But I negotiate billion-dollar international deals. The Financial Times wrote about me today. Page 3. Dubai deal. I closed $2.3 billion this week. He just stared. You didn't know, I said, because whenever I talk about work you ask if I've met someone nice. If I'll have kids. If I'll come home and do something sensible. We just want you to be happy. No. You want me to fit what you understand. That's different. Marcus and his wife Felicity joined us. Nice entrance, sophomore private jet? Marcus said. Company jet. For business use. I got approval for personal travel. Must be nice, Felicity said sharply. Some of us work real jobs. I smiled. Your husband makes $180,000 a year. I make $750,000 base plus bonus and stock. Last year $1.4 million total. I think I've earned it. The silence was heavy. Marcus turned red. You make what? Look up the salary range for Fortune 500 international acquisitions. I fit right in. He looked at our parents. She never told us. I tried, I said quietly. At Thanksgiving I mentioned becoming VP. You ignored it for Marcus's sales award. Christmas, I brought up the Tokyo deal. Dad changed the topic. At Easter, I said I'd been promoted to senior VP. Mom asked if I was dating anyone. They all stared, stunned. Lady Charlotte appeared with the Duke and Duchess. Sophia, we should go. Dinner in Manhattan at 7. Of course. I turned to my parents. Happy anniversary. Thanks for inviting us. You're leaving. Mom said. But people haven't. We came, we celebrated, and now we have other commitments, I said. That's how it works, right? Showing up only when it suits the schedule. The Duke shook Dad's hand. Lovely event, Mr. Whitmore. Your daughter is a credit to you. You must be proud. After they left, my parents stood frozen. The governor wanted a photo with them, Dad muttered. But they're gone. Yes, I said. They are. I turned back. By the way, Dimitri prosecutes war criminals at The Hague. He has a doctorate from Oxford. Speaks 6 languages. He's kind, brilliant, and makes me happy. You didn't want him here because his last name isn't in your registry. Sophia, Mom reached for me. I'll see you at Christmas. Maybe. If there's room for me and my wrong boyfriend. I walked to the garden where Dimitri waited. The cars were ready. Lady Charlotte smiled as we got in. That was dramatic. Too much. Not at all, she said. Sometimes family needs reminding, they don't define your worth. And arriving by private jet? Perfect. Thanks, I said. And for being here. Anytime, she said. We flew back to London that night. Dimitri worked beside me reading case notes. I watched the sunset, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed. From Marcus. Didn't know. I'm sorry. From Dad. Can we talk? From Mom. Dimitri seems wonderful. I'd like to know him. I put the phone down. Maybe I'd reply later. Maybe not. For now, I had a deal to prepare, a case to discuss, and a life I'd built by myself. They once said there wasn't room for everyone. Turns out I'd been important enough all along. They just never noticed.